2-1.
3-2.
3-2-1. Oh, did you hear that? Bill broke his chair. It's cheap.
Welcome to the LW Cast, where we talk about all the things that we would love to talk about on Sunday, but can't quite fit into a Sunday
Run out of time?
Yeah. Episode 7, the holy number, so we better make this a good one, right?
Wow, perfection.
Pokemon Go's up on my...
Wow, I can't believe you even have that on your...
I don't know if we have 3 things. We might only have like 2 things. We're gonna talk about some baseball stuff. Hefty conversation about cancel culture.
Baseball and then the Cleveland Indians, and then lead us into cancel culture.
We're fitting that in there.
Wow.
What has been going on?
Well, yeah, I love baseball, and Little League baseball practice is going on. I got a pretty good little team. I don't know if that means anything, but the kids are loving to play. We actually, the first practice, sat back and said, what do you value? Mm-hmm. So we came up with team values that I'm making them memorize. Wow. They're eating it up because I'm giving them some big league chew.
What's a team value?
Work hard, work together. That's number 1.
Work hard, work.
Encourage always.
Encourage always.
Talk on the field is number 3.
Talk on the field.
And I can't remember number 4.
Okay, I was like,
4th one.
That was number 3 of 15.
They came up with them. So anyway, I heard you're doing some sports too, but not baseball. I think maybe soccer.
Oh, soccer, yes. I have a love-hate relationship with soccer. Mainly because it just seems like anytime there's a game, it is like the most dreary, gross day. Raining, like 40 degrees outside.
Nice. Yeah, that's great.
It could be like 80 the day before, but it's guaranteed on game day. That's what it's going to be like.
Cleveland Indians game. Now we're moving from Little League to Big League, and it was
who were they playing?
Justin Bieber. They beat the Chicago White Sox in 10.
Mm-hmm.
Bieber against who's their ace?
It was. What was his name? It was like Sean or something. Like it was an S name.
He's good too. His 2 aces lined up. It's a great game.
He pitched a great game. It was like 7 innings.
Right. My only problem is I can no longer get the Indians on TV. Did you know that?
I've noticed that they've switched all that around.
It's all on cable, but you can't get it on any internet TV.
I have Hulu, and I can't get it.
No, so. Nobody can get it except cable, so I can't get it, so all I can do is listen. I'm trying to still figure that out. But So I'm a little bit honked with the Indians, but it's not really the Indians. It's Valley Sports Network is the name of it.
Yeah, it's cable companies, and they're trying to make money.
They are trying to make money. But I do have a problem, and the problem is I don't know all the players in the Indians this year. They've changed quite a few guys around.
They have.
There's a couple Rosarios. There's people that I just don't really know
most
very
people
well
who do not watch baseball or care about baseball right now, you're like, this does not matter. But I mean, the Indians have been relatively good every year.
Yeah,
like ever since we got Francono.
Yeah.
The Indians have been a quality.
I think he's
team.
their best part of the team.
Yeah.
Manager Francono. But you know what people do care about? When they hear the Indians are changing their name. That's when people start to care.
They do care.
And everybody seems to have an opinion, right? So why are they changing the name?
To me, the name change is something that we've seen this started a few years back or whatever when we went to some football teams and everything like that. Like,
the Washington football team.
Yeah, the Washington football team.
The Redskins.
They're the Washington football team for the foreseeable future till we can figure out that.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the Cleveland Indians is I didn't see a problem with the name. Like, you know, I always thought, you know, an Indian is a cool dude with the tomahawk and like
before
the Chief Wahoo.
The white guys got here, the Indians were
here.
And I think there's still a lot of people who feel the same way. So what's changed for you?
Well, first off, I've made friends that are Native Americans, and I've realized that by making a team centered around your nationality, it'd be like calling a team like
the Cleveland White Guys.
The Cleveland White Guys.
Okay.
You know, which I mean, you could be like, cool. What is a white guy? I don't know. What does he do?
Right.
But it does seem like kind of derogatory towards them, which I think that there's a give and take in that.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem with the Cleveland Indians changing the name because, quite honestly, it's Cleveland baseball to me.
Right. Yeah, there's a bigger picture. I think when I first started, it's been a story that's been going on a long time. When I was a kid, I think there were protests against the name. So we're talking about the early 80s when I can remember. I really liked Terry Francona. And he did an interview and he goes, I think it's probably about time to make the change. And he kind of just was no big deal other than maybe it is time to do this. The other realization I came to is I'm not sure I'm qualified to decide whether Indians is a derogatory name or not, or a hurtful name. I don't really get to decide that. I'm not in that group.
Yeah.
I do have an opinion or whatever, that's good, but I mean, I think that the Native Americans most have spoken up and said we'd like to have that changed. At the end of the day, it's not a huge deal for me.
Now, if the team was called the Cleveland Indian Preachers,
I would
you could have an opinion.
I know, and I would like that. Now, if it's called, yeah. And if the logo was a really overblown picture of some preacher that looked really bad, I don't know how they would do
Holding
that.
the Bible, like
something that didn't go with what then maybe I'd be like, hey.
But I think that's kind of where you can start to see how we cross some lines too, is when you put it into those like really exaggerated figures of like you could have the team of the preachers and here they are with the Bible thumpers and they smash Bibles at the game to
the
get
Cleveland,
things going. And then you start to think like, wow, that's sacrilegious and that's really offensive to me. Well, that's kind of...
I think we just have to have that perspective of when we're not in the group, that has an issue, we really have to step back and have some humility in that and let people share with us how they feel. So at the end of the day, for me, if you're upset over that name, she's like really upset, there's probably some larger issues under there that need discovered and talked about. I will say, when the name changes, I will feel like I've lost a bit of something.
Yeah, because it's part of
grown up,
nostalgia.
I've loved them.
Like you grew up with that.
So I think there is a bit of a cost in terms of things changing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in the world that we live in with so many things going on, the name change, logo change for the Cleveland Indians is low on the scale. I'm still a big fan of the team.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which this kind of brings us into our final discussion.
Right.
Which is about the cancel culture movement.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you and I kind of talked a little bit with the Cleveland Indians about how like we can be on the side of the canceling culture in this situation.
I guess.
Like, because we're not like, name change, you're ruining
right.
whatever.
I'm not anti-cancel culture. I'm not real strong with it. Like, they could even leave it. I would go about my day, but I understand. But yeah, there's a whole movement now. And in fact, the Indians started talking about this before cancel culture became popular. In fact, that term really became common in the last 12 or 18 months?
Yeah, over the pandemic. I would say too, like, just so everyone is on the same page, like, we all know of cancel culture items that have happened over the last year.
Sure.
You may not remember them, like, I think, what was it? Aunt Jemima got canceled.
Yeah. Uncle Ben's. Those are the food
items that got canceled. There's been books that have been canceled.
And just people are attempting to cancel people's messages out. I think the other side of it, so cancel culture could be a tool to bring attention to something, right? The other side is, man, where's this all going to go? And the whole social media push can really quickly, a whole wave can change. Mm-hmm. And so I think it makes people nervous in terms of what might be next kind of idea.
I know Justin Bieber just put out a new song.
Oh, yeah.
That was all about
run into the altar like a track star.
Run into the altar.
I love that. That's one of the best lines of a song that I know.
The song lyrics are basically centered around what's kind of happened to him. And it says, do we get room to make mistakes? Are we judged for everything we say? I want to grow, but I'm afraid. And will it always be the same? Does what I gotta say even matter? Is life about climbing up the ladder? And can we even see lives that are shattered? Because I'm really trying to silence the chatter. What have we done with society when everybody's getting canceled? And can't there be room for maturity? Because writing them off is not the answer. I thought that was a really cool, coming from someone that is a big name like Justin Bieber, to say, like, I've experienced this and I'm not even sure how to take steps forward.
Yeah, isn't part of the problem with cancel culture the fact that it tries to eliminate the conversation? Mm-hmm. Because obviously our issues are, this person thinks this needs canceled, this one doesn't. This is a big deal, this isn't. Cancel culture wants just to eliminate the conversation, just say you're canceled. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the scary part. I also think Bill Maher, that name, like a commentary political analyst, like on HBO.
Not someone I necessarily listen to, but I know who he is.
And not somebody who I would think would even line up with my ideology pretty much in any way, except he said, we have lost the ability to just let somebody apologize and forgive them. Basically, the NBA star who was playing video games who made a racial slur, I think a Jewish racial slur, has just been hammered. I think he got cut from his team and everything.
Yeah, I believe he did.
And Bill Maher's basically like, he made a mistake. Can't he apologize for that and say, I'm really sorry, which he did, but he still gets hammered. And I think there's a point well taken that there are some things where something happens and somebody says, I was wrong, we need to let people apologize. There needs to be some forgiveness. There needs to be some second opportunities as well. And so I just think cancel culture could be a scary thing that pushes forward. And specifically, I think it could be scary toward some of the faith-based stuff, our faith. I would say there's more people, I don't know how to judge this, to be honest with you, but I know there's a growing secular movement who might say religion isn't good, and all of a sudden there's this clash. And I think that's what people are afraid of sometimes too in the church or the faith-based organizations.
Yeah.
Micah 6:8, which you know really well, obviously.
Name my child after it.
Right, so it says, He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, to walk humbly with your God. And so there's this sense of act justly. I think in the Christian faith, there's a sense of us calling out what's good and bad, and that can even have a bit of cancel culture too. When I talk about boycotting, when I was a kid or teenager, I remember Christians were boycotting Disney for some reason. I can't quite remember what that was about. So there's a sense of that's not right, we're going to pull away. So acting justly, you have to determine right and wrong, right?
Yeah, acting justly is like, in the Free Methodist denomination, which we're a part of.
We're part of that tribe.
Yeah, they, in the Civil War time, took a stance against slavery.
That's right. Freedom for slaves.
And that was something that was an act
it was
justly
a big deal.
moment or whatever.
It's a big deal. So there were some strong stands that were taken, right? But I think it was through a conversation and some action that they took. Act justly.
Yeah.
But
love mercy.
Right. The Bible's so good because there's some balance here, right? Act justly, love mercy. How do you put those two together?
I saw this one time. It was like a triangle, and it talked about how walking humbly with God is the reverence that you look up.
Okay.
Okay, and then the love or acting justly is your outward to this movement, and then your love mercy is your inward expression. So you have
it's your heart.
It's your heart.
So that you can act. Yeah, I agree that all those balance each other so well. If you start with humility, humility is I don't always know all the answers or all the circumstances, so I better be careful how I make my judgments. But I do need to act justly. I need to make judgments. But then when I act justly or make a judgment, take an action, am I doing it with loving kindness of Jesus in me? And so there's some real balance that comes, and it doesn't mean don't do anything.
Yeah, don't be paralyzed.
That's right. But it does mean it should look different. I always think of Paul writing and say the weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. We should be doing this differently. And so I don't know, the way that I know cancel culture is kind of negative. So I don't want to be a part of cancel culture, but I do want to be part of addressing wrongs, right? And I do want to say, what do I want out of that? Do I want to shut you down? Do I want to see you punished? Or do I want to see people redeemed to a new way of thinking?
The thing that drives me crazy about it is usually a lot of times it's just conversations that have just spurred on from some social platforms that are now moving forward. And what we end up doing is getting in that same bandwagon and then furthering this conversation that doesn't do anything. Well, when you act justly, you have to act on something. And acting, yes, it can be sometimes just speaking up out of the silence, but I love it when people are actually moving towards okay, so let's say you really do care deeply about abortion. And that is your hill that you want to die on. Well, don't just sit there and post and get mad at any liberal that might be saying well, it doesn't matter, blah blah blah. Actually go and do something about that. Start to do the research, start to understand.
There's all kinds of care pregnancy centers around here that are great. Volunteer there. Be a part of changing people's minds and hearts toward that. Act justly. Don't just make a decision and broadcast it, but do something that brings justice around out of a loving kindness and out of a humility.
Because if you just keep talking about it and going in that cycle of that downward cycle of just disgust.
Cancel culture comes out, maybe somebody says something very abrasive, very wrong, but then what we do oftentimes is we'll react just as strongly and viscerally from our gut and create all this conflict instead of saying, okay, what can we do in this situation?
And the hardest thing out of all of that is if you are actually acting justly, people might not know that you have done what you've done.
Right.
And that's okay. Right. Because that's what love is.
Right.
I mean...
Yeah. We're having conversations less and less about these hard topics. And so what I'll do is I'll know that you agree with me, so we'll talk about it together, and we're okay with that. But because of the culture that we're in, man, we need to have these conversations. And I hope...
Which, by the way, like, if you're watching this, like, Mark and I don't agree on a lot of things, actually.
I would 50%.
We
Jesus,
sometimes.
we're good on Jesus.
Yeah, we're good on a lot of our theological
I would
stuff,
say
but
part of it too, when we really talk though, is there's more agreement than we think, and it's the way that we talk about certain issues, right? And I think that's actually what happens too. Is sometimes people, they're pretty much on the same of the same opinion, but they talk about it differently. But because they're not talking, you know, who as a follower of Jesus, who doesn't want racial equality and justice?
Yeah.
But we're not talking enough about what that really is in a way that's helpful. What we do is yell at each other back and forth, or type back and forth. I think we all want many of the same things. It just takes a lot of skill to have the conversation about what's going on here.
And to circle back around to the Indians and canceling culture with that, I guess my challenge would be like, it's one thing to have an opinion about that, you know, feel like your nostalgia is being ripped from you or whatever.
I understand.
But it's so much more important that you go and find someone like a Native American and have a conversation with them, befriend them, help them understand, like humanize them in your mind, so that way you can understand why something would even be in the conversation, why it would be hurtful, why this is an issue in our world.
If things are happening like the Indians' name change or some other issue or cancel culture, and you can't understand at all why somebody would do that, I think you need to have the conversation or read the articles, do something to figure out what's that group of people or person's point of view that they would do this. And when there's some understanding, then there can be some movement in it. And to be honest with you, you may want to help change somebody's perspective. Well, you can't do that unless you know it, unless you know the person, unless there's some love coming from you. You know, shouting back and forth isn't going to get her done. So at the end of the day, I don't think we're going to be the Cleveland Indians anymore. I'm going to kind of miss that. But that's a little, my missing that is a little less than, you know, taking away from a group of people.
Yeah. I mean, you still got the team. It's not like someone's stealing them up and taking them to Baltimore or something like that.
It's another story.
That's another story for another time. Well, this is all we got for today.
LWCast
subscribe.
Episodes of smash the buttons, whatever you need to do. Share it.
And we'll see you next time.
We'll see you for 8.